Okay. So just in case you have a couple moments, I want to ask you a question that I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to. You ready? Have you ever played a guitar amp that you didn't like? Impossible question, I know. So let me rephrase it. Actually, let me ask you a different question. Why specifically did you not like that amp? You see, when I started buying gear almost 10 years ago, wow, 10 years, I really probably should be better at this by now. When I started buying gear almost 10 years ago, there was only one amp that mattered. One amp that I could think about, one amp that I would literally dream about, so much so that in math class, my friend Eva would look over at my computer screen and all she would see was 10 Google Chrome tabs open to different Craigslist listings and different used market listings on Princeton Reverb amps, just so that I could maybe try and negotiate with some random townie, so maybe he would give me a $300 deal on a Princeton. And just in case you're wondering, no one sold me a Princeton for $300, but that was all the money I had left after having worked at a summer camp and using all of my money on weird guitar pedals. So if you're like me and you're a child of the early 2000s and you were obsessed with iRobot, you know that our computers are definitely listening to us. So my computer at the time was using the cookies and the metadata and all of the other terms that I don't really understand to flood my suggestions with clean amps, Princeton reverbs, and any other product kind of in that same category. I mean, the damage had been done. The links had been made in my brain and they couldn't be undone. So much so that whenever I would walk into guitar stores, I would look to my left, I would look to my right, I would see the guitars, I would see the amps, I would see the EVH 5150, and I would think to myself, I'm just not that guy, pal. And I know what you're thinking. It was 2015. That phrase hadn't really been a thing yet. Vine was king at the time. But I want to accurately describe to everyone of all ages how I was feeling at the time. Real talk, man. I could not wait until the day where I would finally graduate college, get a job, start saving up a little money, and finally be able to afford that Princeton, which would in turn automatically make me the rock star that I was always meant to be, because that's how it works, right? Of course, there's really only one step left, deciding which specific Princeton I want that'll make me a rock star, right? So immediately I log on to a Quipboard and I'm like, which Princeton does Jimi Hendrix use? And you look down and you're like, okay, I see the Silverface one. And then you look down a little more and I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. I'm seeing big Marshall Stacks on there. Oh, okay. Let me look up something else. Which Princeton does Frusciante use? And I see a couple Fender amps, and I'm also seeing big stacks, and I'm like, wait. I thought we were all on the same page. So I'm out here having this literal gear identity crisis, right? I always thought that us, the good players, the clean players, played our Fenders and our Voxes and all those great amps, while those metal guys and those high gain guys, they stuck to their high gain amps because they can't play without any distortion. I know it sounds a little cringy, but luckily I had a lot of really great friends who knew way more about guitar than me. They had been playing for way longer, and they told me, they sat me aside and they're like, hey Mike, some of the best and most iconic clean guitar tones of all time actually came from players using high gain amps who really found out how to manipulate volume and gain and just understood their guitars and understood their amps. And let me show you what they meant by that. I have in my possession the PRS Archon 50. It is a 2-channel high gain amp, so much so that on the website and on the piece of paper that comes with it, they list it as the high gain hero. I'm not joking. It is the complete opposite of any sort of amp that I would use at the time, but I think there's a lot of really cool things that can be learned from it. So let me show you just how different this amp is from anything I was using before. Didn't think Uncle Mike knew any Metallica, but Tommy Emmanuel is one of my favorite guitar players of all time. What do you mean I sound like an idiot? So as you can see, this amp right here, that is a high gain hero, as PRS has said it, not my words, their words. But I think it's really cool when you push an amp and see what it can do. And usually push means crank the gain, but in my case, push means see how good it sounds clean. So here's how this is kind of going to work. Like I was saying before, this is a 2-channel amp. You have your lead channel and you have your clean channel. What I was just showing you before, that's the lead channel. Obviously, that's what most people would want to use this amp for. And it proves nothing to me if this amp sounds semi-decent or cool when it's clean. What I want to show is just how cool even a high gain amp can sound on the lead channel when you clean it up a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the master volume probably less than 50%, just because that's what's going into the DAW. But I'm going to really take the volume down, and I'm going to take my actual gain knob and I'm going to turn it down all the way to about 20% possibly. But that's not even the full thing. The guitar is just as important as the amp in this scenario, and knowing how to use the volume knob. What's gonna happen is I'm gonna back off the volume. I'm gonna go from 10, where we're getting this really push tone still on the lead channel. And it cleans up so well. I saw Bonamassa talk about this with the Les Pauls, and he was also playing a gold top, so I guess that means I'm Joe Bonamassa. And don't get me wrong, I'm not in any way questioning the clean channel on this amp. It sounds amazing. Obviously this thing has the two different channels, but it's cool when you're thinking about that versatility and going to some of those clean tones is actually the EQ, because you have the bright knob and you have the treble mid bass presence. There are just so many different factors and so many different variables. Again, I forget how much that goes into shaping tone, into shaping the actual overall sound you're getting at the end of the chain, and shaping the actual overall sound you're getting without any pedals. All right, so here's kind of the moral of the story and the bulk of everything I'm thinking right now. If I were to go back in time 5 years, I mean, I did it the old-fashioned way. I stole the DeLorean from Doc and Marty, and they're suing me for damages. And I showed my younger self this amp right here. I don't think he would have liked it. And unfortunately, that would probably be a decision that he made before he even played it or tried it. Because here's a secret. He had a lot of very wrong assumptions about gear. I need to be completely clear. This is not me raging an all-out war against clean amps. This is not me saying that the Princetons and the Voxes, there is no place for them and to never use them because their tone is trash. No, 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 not at all. This is me saying that there are different amps out there, sometimes amps that I wouldn't usually expect, that are able to get different tones when you just play with the gain, play with the volume, play with the EQ, and play with some of those different parameters without immediately just being turned off to the amp. I've learned that some of the higher gain amps out there can really get some of the coolest clean tones you've ever heard if you're willing to take the time to play with the gain, play with the volume, and just see the actual character of that specific amp. And I found the other way around is true. Some of the cleanest amps out there are able to get some of the coolest and freshest distorted tones if you're willing to play with the volume, play with the gain, and play with a couple of pedals if need be. It's just about finding out what that specific amp sounds like, what the tone you're going for is, and really learning about how all these different parameters work. It comes down to the fact that a lot of the times it's really just this one big puzzle that you have to put together at the end of the day. And I'm starting to get really excited about the possibilities of putting those things together and just finding out what other misconceptions I had. Did it with the Orange amp, and now I'm seeing new stuff with the Archon, so I'm seeing what other really heavy amps might I like in the future. So let me know in the comments, what other heavy amps do I need to try? But again, it doesn't matter what I think. I want to know what you think. Have you played and gotten any really cool clean tones out of high gain amps? Let me know in the comments. Have you played the PRS Archon? Have you gotten a clean tone out of that? Please let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. It was an absolute blast to be able to play out of this amp and to just be able to see like what I could do with it, how I could get those specific clean tones, as well as try some new storytelling elements that I wanted to see if I could work into some of these stories. If you want to know anything more about the Archon, I got it from the homies at Sweetwater, so make sure to check out the links below. It's one of the best ways to support the channel, if that's something you want to do, or if you're just curious about any of the other gear that I used in this video. Make sure to check out those links. Like and subscribe if you had a good time, and most importantly of all, have a fantastic day. Sing it again. I've been playing high gain amps. I've been playing high gain amps to get those clean tones. Sing it.